January 21st brings Bullseye's precision to the Spotlight cache. Is this marksman a must-have or should you aim elsewhere? I'll share a quick recap on Moonstone, dive into Bullseye theory-crafted decks, and break down Caiera and Marvel Boy. Let's find out why I hate this new card. Before we get to that, of course, we have the previous card recap. That previous card is Moonstone. Like I guessed, she has found some homes, but nothing super impressive, at least impressive to me thus far. I still hold firm that this is a card that's probably worth having just going into the future, similar to Anti-Venom, similar to Malekith, Frigga potentially, where these cards just took longer than a week to find their ideal places. And I will hold firm that Moonstone is that type of card, and ultimately we'll see if I'm right, but today is not that day. So if you are a future planning type of person, this is a card worth having. If you're willing to let it ride and potentially just grab her with tokens when or if that deck emerges, because it's not a guarantee, then you can go that route and skip her. But ultimately, I land on she is a card worth having in your collection because, like something like Grandmaster, who we also got to see recently in a Spotlight cache, she is a card that I think will be relevant going into the future. Now, in the intro, I already said I hate Bullseye. I will dive into that in detail during his segment of this program.
Your takes are off.
Whoa, this is my channel? I never have bad takes.
Your channel stinks. Unsubscribe.
Caiera is an overall good card or decent card in zoo decks, especially when Destroy becomes super meta. If you're running a lot of one-cost cards, you want Caiera in your deck. Armor is a weaker substitute, but Caiera overall I think is a decent card. Marvel Boy is better than Caiera is. But again, it's a zoo type card. The kind of funny thing with having these three cards grouped together is they're kind of at odds to a certain extent. Bullseye wants to get rid of one-cost cards in your hand, which means you don't want to play those one-cost cards. Marvel Boy and Caiera want you to play the one-cost cards. So there could be a deck that emerges that goes down an either-or path. You can decide to go down the zoo-type path, or you can decide to go down the Bullseye path, depending on what you draw. That will be an interesting deck-building challenge because there's only 12 cards in the deck, and having both of those paths work sounds difficult. But potentially, that was the line of thinking with grouping these cards together, but we'll see. Bullseye is a 3-cost, 3-power card that I hate. Why do I hate him? Because I do not like playing against Gambit, and I do not like playing against Moon Knight, and they are natural partners in crime with Bullseye, who I know I also will not like. So that first week is going to be super annoying for me, playing against super annoying decks. Bullseye's effect is limited. You do need to have cards that cost 1 or less. That means that if a card has been discounted to 1, then you can discard them. That does, as I'm talking about this now, open up some synergy with Ravonna, because now she can reduce those low power 2-cost cards down to 1, and you can discard even more with Bullseye. Of course, the natural pairing is Swarm and Scorn in more normal discard. The other thing that potentially holds back Bullseye is he is an activate card, so he needs to be played on turns 3, 4, or 5. You can't play him on turn 6, and 1 and 2, you normally don't have enough energy, aside from locations. So those are the potential limitations, but the cards surrounding him, and this card specifically, I know will just eat at me and be super annoying. So I hope this card is a massive flop. I hope cards like this aren't good because they are just annoying. I'm gonna drag myself through the process of theory crafting some decks. So in Series 2, I don't know why you would want Bullseye. He really seems like a higher series card, honestly. So maybe if you're this low, you decide to get him in the hopes that you, during Series 3, pull some good cards, but he kind of needs Series 4 and 5 cards to be super effective. That said, we're going with an idea I alluded to earlier in the video, and that is a diverging path. So you can hold your 1-cost cards, get Bullseye down, and then discard them all, build up your Morbius. You hopefully have swarms that have been discarded by Blade, but that's going to be super rare. There's a morph in here because why not? Khazar and Onslaught work together. They can buff up your 1-cost cards that you've played. Cosmo is here as some disruption, but honestly, this is not a Series 2 card. So this is a deck which I... okay, let's get into it anyway. Gambit's here, yeah. Wong, yeah. Mystique. I mean, we're all familiar with this stupidity. Odin, yeah. Rogue is here for tech against other, I guess, Morbiuses. There's a Goose in here. The one thing I guess I'll try to be a little helpful, play Gambit before you activate Bullseye. That way you destroy cards before you start dinging them. Okay, next. Now this deck might be doing too much. That is par for the course when I create decks because I like to get in there, test it, see what's not working, and exchange out some cards. Takes a lot of losing, but as proof with this channel, a lot of videos come out of that losing because I am able to refine the deck to be actually competitive and good, or you never see the video. So with this deck, we are, forget Gambit, I hate the card. So we're going with Bullseye and Moon Knight. We are also leaning into the negative affliction. So I have High Evo here. That way we can get a discounted Abomination after we've activated Bullseye. We're almost guaranteed that, especially if we've discarded a Swarm. We have Ajax to benefit off of that negativity. M'Baku is here because it's just a fun card and another 1-cost card. If you draw it, you get value. You don't have to play it. Scorn is just fantastic, of course. When paired with Bullseye, you almost have to have Scorn. It's too much value there. Blade is a discard, of course, for ideally your Swarm. So on turn 3, you could even go a Colleen Wing and then a Blade, potentially, if Swarm is your lowest cost card, but you all should be able to work that out. Morbius, Mystique copies Morbius, Mystique copies Ajax. So there are a lot of interesting ideas here for me, and if I would get Bullseye, this is probably the direction I would be most interested in heading because it's probably a direction that less people are aware of or going to do. So rather than go super expected with the counter deck and go Luke Cage and Armor and Caiera potentially for the Gambit pairing. So I am going more into the Galactus route, and it is a little bit of junk, right? So with the Goblins, with Hawkeye Kate Bishop's Acid Arrow, they cannot destroy those cards with Gambit, and they cannot negatively afflict those cards with whatever his face is, Bullseye. So if you just throw cards to their side, they can't do anything about them. Of course, I love Galactus. You can get him down early with either a Hope or a Wiccan. We have Quicksilver as the 1-cost card to enable us to trigger the Wiccan. We have enough 2-cost cards, 3 of them. We have plenty of 3-cost cards. So there is no doubt we will be able to trigger Wiccan as long as we draw into a 2-cost card early in the game, which just enables this deck to do a lot. We have Ravonna to discount the Goblins. So for the counter deck, I'm going a little different. You might expect that. And we're going the Goblin and Galactus route. With a special shout out to Silver Surfer, because there are a lot of 3-cost cards That was the way my brain was kind of going, but I don't always want to present a Silver Surfer counter deck, but you could go that route as well. And pour one out for Tokyo 2099. I would love to Legion this location just to rub it in their face. So there is just no help from locations because this one has sadly gone back to the drawing board. Now, if you play a lot of Zoo, Caiera honestly is a card worth having. She is great Killmonger protection. You would run her in a Gilgamesh, Blue Marvel, Khazar type of deck, potentially with the next card, Marvel Boy, I'll be discussing. The other functionality as well is your 6-cost cards can't be destroyed, which really has its uses in these Scar decks or potentially Thanos decks where you're getting down like a Sasquatch, a Mockingbird. Well, Mockingbird's not 10 power anymore, but getting down a Sasquatch early or a Scar early potentially, and you don't have to worry about getting Shang-Chi'd. So she has her uses in those two different type of decks. Otherwise, there's no use for her. So if you play those decks, she's worth having. Marvel Boy doesn't get played that much, at least to my experience, but it is a very strong card. As long as your 1-cost cards are going to survive, getting these pinging power in these lanes is strong, and it adds up, and it just creeps up on your opponent. There are ways to pull out tight games at the end if it's a tie or if you're losing by 1. The Marvel Boy buff comes in to save the day. So this is a strong card. It is exclusively a Zoo card. So if you play Zoo a lot, this is a card worth having. If you do not play Zoo, you will never use Marvel Boy. So will Nerd Dynamite be getting... Yeah, right. There's no way I'm getting this card. I cannot inflict the mental pain and anguish onto other people that I will be feeling when facing this card. So this is a pass for me. There's no way I'm getting this card. I don't want to play these types of decks. Even though that High Evo one has some promise in my mind, I'll let somebody else toil away at that deck if they want. But this card is just not for me. So to recap, Bullseye stinks. Fight me in the comments. Caiera is a good card. And Marvel Boy is good as well. So that is the Spotlight Week. More power to you if you get Bullseye. I hope you are all wrong. And I am correct. We will see. If I'm being honest and trying to be objective, Bullseye will probably be a decent card. It'll find a home. But this channel is mine, so I make the rules.